Hey everyone, this is Stevie Kratoff from Snubbyland.com, and I'm the creator of the World's Hardest Games 1 and 2. And it's been a couple of years since I made those games, but now I'm working on the World's Hardest Game 3. So I'm just making this video to talk mainly about level design. And I've been working on this game for a couple months, and most of that time so far has been spent on just programming the engine of the game and making everything work. And now I'm pretty much done that. So now the rest of the time is going to be spent just designing levels. So I've been designing a lot of levels lately, and I've just been thinking about what makes good level design. So I'm just going to be talking about all the different aspects of the level design that I've been thinking about, just in case anyone's interested in that kind of thing. So yeah, and I'm hoping to have the game done in early or mid-September, so I have a little over a month left. And so far, there's 15 areas of the game have been done, and there's another 35 to go, because there's going to be 50 in total. So I'm like a little over a third done the level design, but most of the hard levels are left still. So and yeah, that leaves me like about a day per level, or per area of each level. Obviously each level is made up of a bunch of different areas, so it leaves me about a day per area. Anyway, oh yeah, and before I get into that, I'll just show you, I have a little cheat here where if I press the I key, I become invincible, and if I press another key, I'm no longer invincible. So if you see me running through enemies, it's because I'm cheating. That obviously won't be in the real game. Okay, anyway, I'm splitting up the level design, like what makes it good, into 4 different categories. First one is freedom and restriction. So that's like making the player free to beat the level how they want in some ways, but also restricting them to do certain things, in certain orders. Second thing is forcing the player to figure out how the level's supposed to be done. And then once, so it seems hard at first, but then once you realize how it's supposed to be done, it becomes a lot easier. So we'll just call that rewarding the player for figuring things out. The third thing is the difficulty. So that's just like all the different ways I can make the game difficult without it being too frustrating. And the fourth thing is creativity. So that's just like making the levels look good, making them fun to play, and then also just not being too repetitive. Okay, so I'm just going to play through what I have so far in level 3, and so far I just have these 2 areas done. This area is B2, and then the area up here, which is B1. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the freedom and restriction. So right off the bat, you're free to either go up here or over here. And it's impossible to get over here because these things are blocking your way. So you have this is freedom and this is restriction. So I'll play through here and get up to B1. And if I die too many times, I'll just go invincible and skip through it. Okay, so now I'll show you B1. This is the other area I've designed so far for level 3. Right when you see this level, you'll see there's 1 key here and 2 doors. And so you basically, there's not very much freedom on this level. You pretty much just have to go here and get the key and then come back. So I'll just do that just so to show you what it looks like. And when I'm thinking about freedom and restriction, I'm not just thinking about it in terms of each area. I have to think about how the areas connect, and how basically the path that the player has to take through all the different areas. Okay, I'm just gonna skip this. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to get this key now. Well, that was a close one. Oh no, okay. Skip time. So you'll see this key opens that door, and then you can... Oh yeah, the skip cheat only works until you hit a cutscene, and then I have to do it again, so that's why that happened. Okay. So once you collect that key, since these doors, neither one of them opened, now you're forced to come back over this way. And then now you're free to go onto the other side of the map because now that door's not there. So I'll show you what that looks like. Kind of have to float around here until you get an opportunity, and then you go up here. And then you can make your way over here. Okay, anyway, so the overall plan for freedom and restriction in this level is it's basically forcing you to go back and forth through this the center of the level. So you go up here, and then that gives you a key, and then you go to one of these areas. And then when you go to one of these areas, that'll give you another key, which opens one of the two doors in B1. And then you go through B1, and then it'll force you to go all the way back through B2, and then over here. So like, the idea is to kind of just make the player go back and forth, maybe 3 or 4 times. And if I feel like it's too repetitive, then I'll make them only go like 3 times. But I just thought that would be kind of cool because you have the freedom to choose like which way you want to go, but then eventually you run out of options and you're forced to go a certain other way. But then you still have some freedom to do, you basically have 2 options no matter where you are. And in later levels, I'm going to give you a little bit more freedom, but I just felt like this was a good level to kind of only give you 2 options. So I think that's pretty much all the freedom and restriction I'm going to talk about right now. And there's all other small things like when you want to collect these coins, but there's no point mentioning that. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to talk about is having the player, like rewarding the player for figuring out how to do the level. So the way I did that in this first little puzzle here is at first it seems really tough, but eventually you're going to realize that there's little safe spots like this. So once you find the safe spots, it actually makes it like way easier. And you pretty much have to just make your way to the next safe spot. So like there's another one right here. There's another one like right here. And then there's one more that I know of. That's right here. I guess right here. So it's just kind of nice having these little safe spots in there because players not going to know about them right away, but once they find them, they're going to be like, yes, now I can get through easier. So that's the first way I don't know really what to call it. We'll just call it rewarding the player for figuring things out. So anyway, in this level, there's another little reward for figuring things out. So you have to go, it starts off with you just going one at a time. So you think, oh yeah, this isn't too hard, I'm just going one at a time. But if you try to go one at a time right here, you're just going to die. So the player has to figure out that you have to go like this. Instead of going up here, you have to come over here and come up here. And then once you figure that out, it's a lot easier. But also, it's still possible to do it that way. If you want to do it this way, it's just harder. So like, you got to go like this. Oh god. Okay, I'm just going to go invincible. If you want to go up this way, you basically have to go 2 at a time like that. So you basically have to just non-stop run all the way up like that. But that's not anywhere near as easy as just going one by one up here. So that's just a little way I'm rewarding the player for figuring out the best, like the easiest path to take. And then there's another little thing here where the player, okay, I'm gonna not be invincible now. The player has to figure out that if you go through the middle, it's way harder. But it's still possible, but it's a lot harder than if you go to the edge. So like, if I go all the way up to the top or to the bottom, now it's still hard, but it becomes a lot easier. Okay, it's slightly easier than trying to make your way through the middle. So once the player figures that out, they're gonna be happy about that. Let me just think. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the first area. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but if you see a little bit of lag, don't worry about that. That's not going to be in the real game. It's just something that's going on right now because I'm playing in full screen and I'm recording and stuff. Oh yeah, here's another way of rewarding the player. Is this? This is one of my favorite little puzzles right here. I'm just going to touch this checkpoint. So at first, this is going to seem really hard. Like the player's gonna want to go like this, and see just nudge their way up like that, and that's going to be really hard to do. Like going like this is like really hard to do. But then once you realize that all you have to do is move one square at once, then it becomes really easy. So like once the player figures that out, they're going to be patting themselves on the back because they're like, oh, that's way easier than what I was doing before. So that's pretty much it in terms of rewarding the player for the two areas I've designed so far. And I'll just show you what it looks like for me to beat this half of the level. So I'm going to go on Invincible here, and then just making your way through the middle is pretty tough. You got to keep track of so many little things. Oh god, oh god. But once the player figures out that at any given time there's one square over you have to move, then they're going to be pretty happy about that. Because I'm going to try to do this like going like that. It's like impossible. Ugh. Okay. Anyway, so the third thing I'm going to talk about is the difficulty and the different ways I'm making the level difficult. One thing I already brought up is having little safe spots in the level. So that's just a little thing that helps. Another thing is having space, like the amount of obstacles between checkpoints. So like in the early stages of the game, there's only one obstacle between each checkpoint. So once you get to one checkpoint, you just go to the next one, to the next one. But as you get later into the game, it becomes a lot harder. Actually, I'm just gonna restart this level here. So, like right here, these coins aren't on a checkpoint. So once you get to the coins, you're not out of the woods yet. You still have to get to the next checkpoint. So like, this is the first obstacle. Now that you've got the coins, now you still have to get to that's obstacle number 1, and then obstacle number 2 is getting to this checkpoint. So it's kind of like I'm just trying to like slowly introduce more and more situations where there's more than one obstacle between each checkpoint. So that's a pretty easy one. Like this is a small obstacle here. As you get to this level, you'll see like in order to get these coins here, you have to go all the way over here and then all the way over back here. So like just if the coins were on a checkpoint, that would be pretty easy. But since they're not on a checkpoint, it forces you to do a lot more before being safe at the checkpoint. So I'm here. I'm just going to try to do that just for fun. And it's and then like in levels, in the later stages of the game, there might be 3 or 4 obstacles between each checkpoint. And then you're going to be really, oh no, okay, whatever. And then another little instance of that is right here, where there's these coins up here and here. So not only do you have to get to the coins, but you have to get back. And that also kind of takes advantage of the fact that there's no checkpoint at the entrance of this room here. So if you want to get these coins, you either have to go here and then here, or wherever the last checkpoint over in this area was, like all the way here and then all the way back here. So like it's just another instance where there's more than one obstacle between each checkpoint. And then another thing I already kind of mentioned in terms of difficulty was just making the player overlap certain areas of the game. So like you start off, actually like just in this level, you have to come up here through here, and then you have to come all the way back through here. And then also like you have to come through here, get all these coins, and then come, you know, back through here. And then this same pattern is up here as well, so you have to do the same thing twice, kind of. And I just try to make it, you know, if I'm going to make you repeat the same thing over and over again, I want to make it not too repetitive and boring. So the way I do that is to just kind of, you know, I try to, the ones that you overlap tend to be the designs I'm more happy with. So you play like the better designs more than once, and then the crappier designs you just play once. And also sometimes when the level's symmetrical, I'll just do the same thing in both sides. But other times, like this is pretty much symmetrical, but these are two, you know, pretty much completely different patterns. So like if I was to have this same pattern in two spots, I think that would just be too repetitive. So I just kind of gauge, you know, how repetitive I want it to be, because, you know, in the first World's Hardest Game, you just have to beat each pattern once, and then that's it. But now you're forced to beat it from different, like multiple times and from different angles. So I think that just kind of makes it a lot better. And also, by adding these coins here and here, I make it so that you have to explore more of this, more of each of these patterns. Instead of like, if there's no coins here, you wouldn't even have to go to this area. But since there are, it forces you to kind of move throughout the whole thing, the whole pattern more. That's not really have to do with, well, I guess that's just general, you know, making it more difficult. Okay, anyway, the last thing I'm going to talk about is creativity, and basically that's split up into three things. Number one is just making the levels look good. So it's one thing to have them the right difficulty, but I also want it to be pleasing to your eye. So like that basically just has to do with where the coins are, where the walls are. Like the main thing is just the shape of the walls, you know, where the doors are, and just like trying to make it look good. Like one example of that is right here. Having these kind of twist around just looks better than if I was to just have a little block right here, even though it's the exact same difficulty. And I don't know, it's actually pretty tough just making the level look good. But another, you know, another obvious aspect of the creativity is you have to come up with different patterns of enemies. So like, I could have the same pattern over and over again, but at different speeds. And yeah, it would be more and more difficult, but it wouldn't be like as fresh as having a completely different pattern. So like, it takes a lot of creativity to just think of all the different ways you can manipulate these little blue circles. So like, for example, you know, this pattern here is made up of a circle moving in a circle, but this pattern is also made up of circles moving in circles. So it just shows that there's two completely different ways you can utilize the same, you know, enemy movement. And I also just put them side by side because it looks good, so that, you know, like you have both of the circle movements right beside each other. And yeah, another little thing about creativity I did is in this area right here, you'll see this kind of crisscross pattern in World's Hardest Game 1 and 2, but I never really experimented with having three enemies like stuck together crisscrossing. And when you have the three enemies stuck together, it makes things a lot like closer. Like it's a lot harder to get, you know, crisscross through it. So it causes you to like each time you move to a different spot, it's like a really close call. So like, you'll see like me just barely evading enemies like over and over again. Like each time, like right here, I'm just going to barely get out of the way. Like, see, that was just so close. That's because there's three stuck together. So like just having the three stuck together makes it so much more or so much, I don't know, it's just more fun basically. And then another little thing about creativity is, I don't think I mentioned this, but in this level, basically for the majority of it, you're just going like this, moving one at a time. But there's two little areas right here and right here where you can't just move one at a time. You have to crisscross. So like when I say crisscross, I mean, or I'll say like jag around. So like right here you have to jag around like that. So when you're making your way up, at first you're like, oh yeah, that's not so bad. Like, oh, I just have to go one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. But then when you try to get these coins here, you realize, hey, I can't just go one at a time. I have to jag around. So like, it's kind of nice how at first the player thinks it's easy, but then they realize it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. So that's just kind of like, just makes it a lot more interesting and fun to play. And then that's another little example of that right here, where they think they can just go one at a time, but all of a sudden they can't. So it just kind of makes things more, interesting to play. And another little thing I like is, let me just get this key. Oh yeah, I already mentioned that. The cheat only works until you hit a cutscene, and then I have to do it again. So by getting that key, I'm allowing the player to go into this side of the map. But I think it was pretty creative how I put the door right here, because I could have put the door like right here or something. But when you put it up there, the player realizes like, oh, now it's possible to kind of jag around like this and go around this thing. So like, you have the option of getting to this thing before, but you just could never get around it until you got this key. So like, just deciding to put the doors there was a pretty good idea. And then another little thing I like about this kind of design right here is you're at the checkpoint right here, but if you want to get to this side, this thing is kind of forcing you to go quickly into it. So like, you're running right into it like this. So it's not a really common thing you see in this game, but it's forcing you to like, rush right into the level instead of taking your time and easing into the level. By having this thing here, it's rushing you right in, so like you don't have a chance to even think about where you're going. So I think that's pretty cool how it just rushes you in, and then same when you're going this way, it rushes you right into these things. And then it also works the other way, where when you're trying to even get to this thing, you basically have to make your way to like this little area right here. And then you just have to like circle around this thing until you see an opening. Oh god. So you have to circle around like near the entrance here until you see an opening, and then once you see an opening you have to take it really quick. So that's way better than if you could just sit here and wait for the thing to come and then just run up. It would be so easy. So yeah, I was pretty happy about that. And then I don't know, I guess it was kind of cool how I could have, you see this column of dots right here is moving the exact same as this column right here, but these are moving different directions. If I was to make them all moving the same direction like these two columns, it wouldn't be anywhere near as fun, because you could just basically just go like this throughout the whole thing. But once they start switching directions, it's like way more interesting, because now all of a sudden when you're going horizontally, you go sideways a couple times in a row, or like sometimes you have to wait in the same spot. Like right here, I'm waiting in the same spot instead of moving. Same with right here. Okay. So yeah, that just made it a lot more interesting. Okay, so I was going to end the video there, but there's just one thing I forgot to mention. One thing I'm pretty happy about that makes the game kind of more creative and difficult is the fact that this key here, that's not in a safe spot. So like, when you collect the key, the cutscene runs for about 3 seconds, and then you have to remember where you were and then get out of the way. So like, most of the keys are in safe spots, but when a cutscene runs and you're not in a safe spot, it adds a whole other level of difficulty, because now you have to remember what was happening and then jump right back into the action right after the cutscene. So I think that was a pretty good idea to not have that little key in a safe spot. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching, and wish me luck on the rest of the game.